From the ABC 27 Digital Now Center, this is Beyond the Forecast with your most accurate local meteorologists.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Now Center, and welcome to what we are calling Beyond the Forecast, giving us the opportunity to go beyond the forecast, and we are going way beyond for this evening. But expect more of these to happen. It gives us the opportunity to speak more in depth about some things, and one of them being chronic wasting disease. I'm an avid sportsman. I love this time of the year, and I'm sure many of you do too. And I want to thank you for joining us. Along with me, we have meteorologist Dan Tomaso.
How's it going, everybody?
He's going to be punching the buttons for us, just helping us out this evening. But we also want to welcome Courtney Colley. From the Pennsylvania Game Commission. You have a unique position with the Game Commission, a new one too, right?
Yes. So I started with the Game Commission just a little over a year ago, and my primary responsibility is to communicate with the public what CWD is and how we're managing it.
And just raising awareness of chronic wasting disease. I'm sure this is the time of the year now we're really starting to think about hunting. Are you getting a lot of questions coming up from a lot of hunters?
Yes, lots of phone calls, lots of emails. We actually created a hotline this year and a email account just for CWD questions.
Okay.
Because we get so many.
Well, hopefully we can answer a lot of those this evening and for the next, I would say, 15, maybe 20 minutes. We'll see how long this goes. We did get about a dozen or more questions just from our viewers, and we're going to be asking those. This is sort of timely too, Courtney, because obviously archery season started just 2 or 3 weeks ago. We have early muzzleloader season that begins this weekend. We have the Antlerless special firearms that also happens next week. So there will be a lot more deer harvest beginning. And of course, rifle season after Thanksgiving will be the big one. But obviously with a lot more harvest, and now we're getting more cases, or at least a larger disease management area of chronic wasting disease. And Dan, you do have a map. This is the map of the animals, the deer that tested positive for chronic wasting disease.
Yes, wild positive since 2012.
Okay. We've seen this disease management area, DMAs, now expand parts of Juniata County, Perry County. I'm not sure is Cumberland County part of that too?
A small part of Cumberland
Okay,
County, yes.
and also Franklin County. So really west of the Susquehanna River, but then I think there is also a small portion in Lancaster County.
Yeah, so Disease Management Area 4 currently covers parts of Lancaster, Lebanon, and Berks County.
Okay. So what there's been, at least from what I've researched through the website and talking to everyone, at least there have been 2 positive cases, one in Perry County, one in Juniata County, which is the reason why Management Unit 4B, then now that's, I think, is that that management unit now under?
Yeah, I think all of 4B is
okay.
Within the Disease Management Area 2 actually now expands up into Snyder County.
Okay.
And basically, if you are southwest of 522 and also west of the Susquehanna River, you're encompassed in a disease management area.
Okay. And we were showing that there's certainly a higher density of deer that tested positive west of here, but it seems like that we're starting to see more cases now expanding eastward.
Yes.
Okay. When a deer is tested positive for CWD, how large of an area it automatically becomes under quarantine?
So we actually basically place a 10-mile buffer radius, I should say, around that positive. The primary reason for this is we want to encompass anywhere where that deer may have moved within the last year. The causative agent of CWD, the prions, can be shed through saliva, urine, and feces and get into the environment. So we really want to make sure we kind of create a good buffer of where that deer might have been. So 10 miles.
Now you mentioned prions. Maybe my first question should be, what is CWD?
So chronic wasting disease, in simple terms, is a deadly brain disease that affects members of the deer family.
Okay. And I think someone said, is it like mad cow disease? Is it sort of like mad cow disease? Okay.
Very closely related to mad cow disease. So mad cow disease, scrapie in sheep, Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease in humans, CWD, they're all in the same family of diseases, which are called transmissible spongiform encephalopathies.
Okay.
And
I'm going to have to write that one down.
Means they're diseases that are caused by prions.
Okay. And a disease is different from a virus, correct?
So a prion, yes, a prion is different from a virus. So prions are primarily consisted of proteins. They're actually, I should say, prions actually exist naturally in most mammals. However, whenever they distort or become defective, they actually cause disease. So most other pathogens like bacteria and viruses actually require DNA and RNA to reproduce, while prions do not contain DNA or RNA, which actually explains why normal disinfection procedures do not work on prions, such as extreme heat or even ultraviolet radiation.
Okay, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on too. We were talking earlier. How does it? I mean, if I'm out, I start seeing deer. How can I tell? Okay, that one looks sick. That one has CWD. This one looks healthy. This one's fine. I mean, how does it? First of all, how does it affect the deer?
So the prions actually accumulate in the central nervous system.
Okay.
And they create tiny holes to form in the brain that lead to death. So the answer to can you tell if a deer is sick with chronic wasting disease? Not really, and the reason for that is because chronic wasting disease has a long incubation period, which just means it takes a long time for symptoms to show.
Okay.
On average, CWD-infected deer may not show symptoms for 18 to 24 months. But once they do start to show symptoms of disease, you're going to see lowered head and ears, excessive drooling. That's a big one. Excessive urination, thirst. You're going to see a rough hair coat. The deer's going to progressively get thin, and also behavioral problems such as listlessness, which means not wanting to move, and also the lack of fear of humans.
Okay. How does it spread from deer to deer?
So it can either spread directly through deer-to-deer contact, or it can be spread indirectly through prion-contaminated environments. So prions can be shed onto the landscape through saliva, urine, and feces.
Okay. We do have a time lapse, Dan, too. How quickly, can this spread, CWD? Obviously, we've noticed it over the last couple of years, but is it something that can really take a hold of the deer herd pretty quickly?
So this is kind of a tricky question because we don't actually know what the infectious dose is to infect a deer right now. It could be exposure to one prion. It could be exposure to 100,000 prions before a deer becomes infected. We just don't know that right now. But from what we see, the patterns and trends that we see in other states is that CWD is a progressive disease that slowly builds over time. However, human-related activities can increase or help that disease jump into new areas a little bit quicker. Sure.
I had someone tell me that sometimes, diseases can spread 60 miles an hour, and that's just mentioning, from vehicle to vehicle. If you harvest an animal that may be tested positive, you move that animal to a different location. Obviously, as you mentioned, humans, can help to push that along sometimes.
Yes.
Okay. And what we're looking at right now is this is just a time lapse. These are positive cases. This is about 2 years ago, 2018. As we continue this along, would that be Blair County and Bedford County that seem to have the highest densities of positive cases?
So since 2012, if you count from the very first positive that we ever had, Bedford, Blair, and Fulton County, over 90% of our positives have come out of there since 2012. So that's really what we would consider the core, so to speak, or where CWD is currently established in the state.
Okay. So I'm hiking my dog this time, or just really any time of the year. Should I be concerned for my pets? I mean, does this transfer to other animals?
So to date, chronic wasting disease has only been found to infect members of the deer family, so no humans, no livestock, no dogs. Mm-hmm. However, there was an interesting study that did come out that showed that scavengers, so canines, avian scavengers, can actually consume prions, and they can still remain infectious on the other side.
Okay. Once it's detected, is it easy to get rid of?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Not at this time. I wish it was.
You mentioned an incubation period too, right?
Yeah, so it's hard to notice for
Right.
the first thing. It's hard to detect. Then also, there's currently no vaccine or cure for CWD, which obviously creates limitations to managing the disease. And once the disease is found in the soil, it can remain infectious for several years, and we don't have a feasible method right now to remove prions once they're in the soil. So really the best thing that people can do is to prevent it from getting in their area in the first place.
Okay. All right, so I've consumed venison most of my life. My family have always been hunters, and I continue that tradition. Where I hunt now is under a disease management area. Should I be concerned about eating venison?
So
this is a big question.
Yes,
I'm sure
it
you
is.
get a lot.
And I want to give all sides of,
Okay.
of the, because it's really a personal choice as to whether you want to consume meat or not. So chronic wasting disease was first found in 1967. Since, there have been no known cases of chronic wasting disease infecting humans. Inevitably, somebody has probably ate CWD-infected meat. We actually know people do, because every year we have deer that test positive and people choose to keep the meat. And again, there has been no known cases. However, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends that humans avoid consuming meat from CWD-infected animals, and I believe this is primarily because it is closely related to mad cow disease.
Okay.
And as a general precaution, the Pennsylvania Game Commission also recommends that hunters who harvest deer in CWD-positive areas, so Pennsylvania's disease management areas, get your deer tested prior to consuming, and you can do that free of charge by putting your head in a head collection bin within a disease management area.
And Dan, you have a picture of one of those bins. You've made it very convenient for a lot of us that are in these disease management areas. I know there's one of these bins about 2-3 miles from my house. Now these bins, if I get this animal, if I harvest this animal, what exactly do I need to do? What is the process to then getting it tested, putting it in this bin?
Okay, so first, of course, you got to locate where the bin is, right?
Okay.
So the location of these bins are on our website, and that is www.pgc.pa.gov.
Okay.
If you have any issues finding the locations of these on the website, or you just don't have access to internet, you can call our hotline, and we'll find the closest head bin to you.
Okay.
So that is 1-833-INFO-CWD. Once you know where you're supposed to go, we ask that when you submit your head into the head collection bin, we ask that you double bag it. There are bags provided on the head collection containers.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And you need to keep the harvest tag attached. If you don't keep the harvest tag attached to the ear, we have no clue where the results are supposed to go.
And you have no way of contacting the
Right, we have
person
no way
that
of
harvested the animal.
contacting-
Okay.
Yes. So the harvest tag has to remain attached. If for any reason, I know a lot of people are nervous about not having a harvest tag with their deer. You just need to know which head collection bin you put that head in.
Okay.
So just the closest township will work.
Kevin Brookhart asked a question: if I harvest a buck, am I able to remove the antlers before I send the animals for testing?
Yes. Actually, we will not be returning antlers once they're in the head collection bin.
They won't come back.
We tested over 9,000 deer for chronic wasting disease, so there's just no way we're going to be able to get all of everybody's antlers back. So you can cap the skull and remove as much as the brain material as possible from the underside before you put it in the head collection bin.
Okay. How fast can I get these results? How long do I have to store this meat until I know whether or not it's safe to eat?
Last year, it actually took us a little bit longer than what we had expected to get our results back, and we realized this was a problem. So this year, we're actually also, along with the Pennsylvania Veterinary Laboratory, we're also working with PennVet to be able to increase our capability to test deer for CWD. So we are expecting this year to be able to get results back in 10 to 21 days.
Okay. And how accurate are these tests?
They're actually very accurate. So we use ELISA and IHC. These tests have very high sensitivity and specificity. So that just basically means there's a very low chance that we're going to get false positives and false negatives. And another thing is, if a deer does test positive for chronic wasting disease, we test it again to make sure it is truly positive for chronic wasting disease.
Okay. I can't cook this venison just enough that I can kill CWD?
No, not unless you like eating ash, because prions have been found to withstand 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit and still remain infectious.
Okay. Not too many people cook venison at 1,100 degrees either.
Yeah.
Okay. I get a couple other questions. So if I butcher the deer myself, and there's a lot of people that do, is there a way to avoid parts of the deer that contain CWD?
I don't think you're ever going to be able to avoid the prions entirely. One thing, prions can be found anywhere in the body.
Okay.
However, they concentrate in the highest densities in the central nervous system, so the brain and the spinal cord. Now, you can kind of work around these areas when you quarter your deer. If you process your own deer, some things that we would recommend: wear gloves, wash your hands thoroughly after you get done processing your deer. Avoid cutting through the spinal cord as much as possible. Now, to submit your head for sampling, you're going to have to do that. But like, avoid cutting directly down the backbone.
Okay.
And also, once you're done, wash your tools in a 40% dilution of household bleach, or expose it to that for at least 5 minutes. A recent study has found that this can disinfect the prions that are on those tools and equipment that you're using.
All right, I was going to ask you that too, because oftentimes in locations there are multiple deer that get butchered in one location. These tools are going to transmit, so 40% bleach solution.
Yes.
For 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
For
perfect.
5 minutes.
I'm going to have to, by the way, this is going to be recorded. We'll have this on our website, which I'm going to check back later and jot down some of my own items that I want to be interested in keeping here and taking home with me. Here's another one. So, Josh Holman, are there any treatments or cures for chronic wasting disease?
Not yet.
Okay.
We do not have a vaccine or cure for chronic wasting disease at the current time.
Where did it originate? Where did the CWD come from?
So the very first case of chronic wasting disease was, again, in 1967, and it was found actually in a research facility in Colorado.
Okay.
And it wasn't until the 1980s that it was found in the wild population.
I mean, are there cases where CWD was detected and was removed completely? Are there other cases where CWD was detected and it was able to just kind of take over the population?
So if you look at experiences in other states without action, yeah, CWD seems to increase and spread annually.
Okay.
Once you find that first positive. However, there are a few cases that have shown, some states, I should say, that have shown some success with managing chronic wasting disease.
Okay.
So New York first detected chronic wasting disease in 2005, both in captive and wild deer, and they actually responded quickly, and they used aggressive management actions that include increasing hunter harvest and using what we call targeted removals to reduce deer populations right around known positives. This lowers deer-to-deer contact and also reduces the amount of prions that can accumulate in the environment. And through this, they have not detected any more chronic wasting disease since in New York.
Okay.
Something similar in Minnesota, they detected chronic wasting disease in 2010 in Olmsted County. Exact same thing. They used increased hunter harvest and target removals. They did this for 3 consecutive years, and they have not detected any more chronic wasting disease in that local area. So there are some examples of success. However, there's only a couple out there so far.
Okay.
So the majority of the time, it is going to continue to get worse if you don't try and combat it in some way.
Anthony had a question. Maybe this is a good time to ask this. Why are they... the Game Commission giving more Doe tags? Is this because of your what we would call aggressive harvest?
So within the disease management areas, there's really 2 reasons for this. One, the heads that we get from or in the head collection bins help us determine the infection rate and the spatial distribution of chronic wasting disease within these areas. So the DMAT permits that we provide to hunters or allocate to hunters are, for one, to help increase our surveillance efforts within these areas, and then also, yes, it does help lower the deer population in those areas, and it gives hunters the first opportunity to do so. It really allows hunters to be the first line of defense against CWD in these areas.
And that was going to be my next question. As hunters, we have the opportunity to prevent CWD from spreading, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we do. I mean, hunters can help by limiting the movement of high-risk parts and properly disposing of those parts, and then also by submitting heads for sampling. I mean, those things help significantly.
Sure. Now, okay, what if I don't hunt, but I'd like to see deer? I like to feed deer on my property. That's probably not a good thing, right? And it's also now illegal, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was the first thing I was going to start out with, just so it's very clear. Within Pennsylvania's disease management areas, it is unlawful to feed wild deer.
Okay.
It is also unlawful to feed wild elk, just so people know that. So the primary reason for this is because supplemental feeding can cause deer to congregate in ways they wouldn't do so naturally. And you add on to this that deer and elk are drooling, they are defecating, they are urinating within this area. So if just one deer is positive for CWD, we are increasing the risk of spreading that disease either through direct contact of deer or indirectly through contact with now an infected environment.
Okay. Not too many questions left. I want to wrap this up here. What will the Game Commission be doing over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to prevent this spread?
So actually, we just put out a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, a draft response plan for chronic wasting disease. So if you actually look on our website, the last plan that we have on there is from 2011, so it's time for it to get updated.
Okay.
Right now, what we're looking for is public comment on this draft response plan. So it is available, almost 40 pages of it on the website, and we are looking for public comment. We want to know if you like it, why do you like it? If you don't like it, tell us what you don't like about it, and actually propose a solution if you don't like what we're proposing. So propose something different. Maybe there's something that we haven't thought of.
And we have those public, I think that's all the way up till February or March that we can give
February
comments.
29th,
Okay.
2020. That's
You
the
have
last
time.
day. Yes,
You
you
have
do. You
time.
have time to read it. Please read it.
And you have time to comment and provide, your own experiences and perhaps how you may want to see how to handle chronic wasting disease. Getting one last question coming in. This is a good one too. So if a deer tests positive for CWD, is the Game Commission going to replace the tag if we don't eat the deer?
So that's a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
So as a general rule, so to speak, is if you harvest a sick deer, we will replace your tag as long as it's within the hunting season. Since it does take 10 to 21 days to get your results back, often you're going to get those results after hunting season is already over.
I see.
So many of the times we are unable to actually replace a tag. We're trying to think of ways to kind of ease that, because I know I'm a hunter myself. If I would go out and process my own deer and I'm storing it in the freezer for weeks, and then to find out that it is positive and I don't have a chance of getting another deer, that would be kind of a little disheartening to me myself. So we're trying to look at ways at how can we ease that for hunters, whether it might be paying for processing fees or maybe giving them a tag for the following year, but we just don't have that information yet. We don't have that solution yet. Right now, we're just really focused on what are our major management actions that we need to be taking for chronic wasting disease, which are outlined in the response plan.
Okay. Here's something that just came up to me right now. So if I have all the meat in the freezer waiting for the test results to come back, they come back positive, what do I do with the meat?
This is now up to you to decide.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep it and take the risk and eat it, or do you want to dispose of that meat properly?
Okay.
So if your deer is positive, your local game warden will be getting in contact with you as soon as possible.
Okay.
So calling you, potentially knocking on your door. And if he is there, I'm sure he or she, I should say, I'm sure they would be more than willing to help you dispose of those parts properly.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. I think we've had 20 or 30 questions there, but the last 25 minutes, half an hour, hopefully was useful. As I mentioned, we're getting a lot of now seasons, early muzzleloader coming in. And some other ones that will be getting close, so there will be more harvests. So Courtney Colley, thank you very much for coming in this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you for answering all of those questions. We hope all of you have a safe experience this season. Of course, enjoying the traditions and the memories of hunting, but obviously with CWD now in parts of the mid-state, there are some things that as a hunter we should be responsible to do, so we do prevent this disease from spreading. So thank you very much for joining us in the Digital Now Center and Beyond the Forecast. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Until next time.